The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension. 847 different species had gathered on the neutral station of Harmony Prime. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some walked on legs, others floated in special tanks. But today, they all agreed on one thing. Humans had to be stopped. Admiral Kreshta stood at the center podium, his blue scales catching the artificial light. The Zenthuri were proud warriors, but even they had never seen anything like what humans could do in battle. His voice carried across the chamber through universal translators. "Honored council members," he began, his forearms spread wide. "We have all seen the reports from the Proxima border war. The humans defeated the Corvan Empire in 6 months. 6 months. The Corvans had been fighting for 300 years before humans even left their home world." Murmurs filled the chamber. The Corvans were known across the galaxy for their military might. Their ships could crack planets. Their soldiers could fight for days without rest. Yet humanity had crushed them completely. "But it is not just that they won," Admiral Kreshta continued. "It is how they won. They turned cargo ships into bombs. They used mining equipment as weapons. They shot simple metal rods at planets and destroyed entire cities." A hologram appeared above the podium. It showed footage from the war. Human ships that looked like flying junk heaps were tearing apart sleek Corvan warships. The humans had welded armor plates onto civilian vessels and mounted massive guns on them. They had turned asteroid mining charges into planet crackers. "This is not warfare," said Counselor Vidura of the Peaceful Communion, her tentacles writhing in disgust. "This is madness. They fight like animals, with no honor or rules." Ambassador Sarah Chun sat in the human section, watching the display with tired eyes. She had tried to warn them this day would come. Humans had been part of the Galactic Council for only 50 years. They were still the newest members, still learning how things worked in civilized space. "The worst part," Admiral Kreshta said, pointing at new footage, "is their creativity. Look at this." The hologram showed human soldiers using tools as weapons. Welding torches became flamethrowers. Construction mechs became war machines. Even their kitchen knives have been turned into throwing weapons. "They see everything as a potential weapon," said High Commander Zoltath of the Silicon Hegemony, his crystal form pulsing with orange light. "Our intelligence reports say they have books about making weapons from common items. They teach their children these things in schools." The chamber erupted in shocked gasps and angry chittering. The idea of teaching children about weapons horrified most species. War was supposed to be left to trained soldiers, not spread to civilians. Ambassador Chung finally stood up. She was smaller than most beings in the chamber, but her voice cut through the noise. "Council members, please listen to me. You do not understand why we fight this way. Enlighten us," Admiral Kreshta said coldly. Sarah walked to the speaking platform. Around her, hundreds of alien eyes watched with suspicion and fear. "Humans come from a dangerous world. We had to fight for everything. Not just other humans, but the planet itself. Storms that could level cities. Animals that wanted to eat us. Diseases that could kill millions. Many species face hardships," interrupted Counselor Vithara. "We do not all become weapons-obsessed savages." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice calm. "You say we are savage, but we protected innocent people from the Corvan slavers. We stopped them from turning children into soldiers. Was that savage?" "Your methods were savage," Admiral Kreshta replied. "Kinetic bombardment? Electromagnetic pulse weapons? These things are too brutal for civilized warfare. And what about the Corvans using mind control on prisoners?" Sarah shot back. "What about them destroying entire species that would not surrender? Where was your civilization then?" The chamber fell silent. It was true that the Council had done little to stop Corvan expansion. They preferred diplomatic solutions that often failed while innocent people suffered. "That is beside the point," said High Commander Zaltith. "We are here to discuss human weapons, not past failures. Your species has proven too dangerous to be allowed unrestricted military development." Sarah felt her heart sink. She had hoped reason might prevail, but she could see the decision had already been made. "What exactly are you proposing?" Admiral Kreshta activated another hologram. This one showed a formal document. "The Human Weapons Restriction Act. All kinetic weapons above a certain velocity will be banned. All electromagnetic pulse devices will be restricted to approved scientific use. All improvised weapons and modifications will be prohibited." "You want to take away our right to defend ourselves," Sarah said. "We want to ensure galaxy-wide peace," Council of Ithara replied. "You will be given access to our advanced defensive technologies. Energy shields, non-lethal pacification systems, automated defense drones. These are far superior to your primitive ballistic weapons." Sarah laughed bitterly. "Primitive? Our primitive weapons saved your species from Corvan occupation. But you prefer pretty energy beams to effective tools." "The vote is clear," Admiral Kreshta announced. "All in favor of the Human Weapons Restriction Act?" Lights appeared throughout the chamber as species voted. Green for yes, red for no. Sarah watched in growing dismay as green light after green light appeared. Only a few dozen species voted against the measure. 803 votes in favor, the Council computer announced. 44 votes against. The motion passes. Sarah stood slowly. Around her, the other human delegates looked shocked and angry. "You are making a mistake," she said quietly. "Our weapons exist for good reasons. There are things out there in the dark spaces between stars. Things that energy shields cannot stop. Human paranoia and fear-mongering," Admiral Kreshta dismissed. "Your species sees threats everywhere because violence is all you understand." "I hope you never learn how wrong you are," Sarah replied. She gathered her papers and walked toward the exit. The other human delegates followed her dot behind them. The Council members congratulated themselves on bringing peace to the galaxy. They spoke of how much safer everyone would be now that human weapons were controlled. None of them noticed Sarah's final words as she left the chamber. "When the darkness comes, do not say we did not warn you." The great doors of the Council chamber closed behind the human delegation. Inside, 847 species celebrated their victory over human militarism. They had no idea they had just sealed their own fate. 3 years had passed since the Council banned human weapons. Earth looked very different now. Where once massive defense stations had orbited the planet, sleek alien technology hummed quietly in space. Centauri energy shields covered every human colony. Makaran peacekeeper drones patrolled the trade routes. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the New Angeles spaceport, watching alien security systems scan every passenger. The blue light of Centauri scanners washed over everyone entering the station. Red beams from Corellian peaceful intent verifiers made sure no one carried anything dangerous. "Amazing how safe everything is now," said his co-pilot Maria Santos with heavy sarcasm. She pointed at a group of young Centauri soldiers laughing near the departure gates. "Look how much they respect their protectors." Jake listened to their conversation through his translator. The aliens were telling jokes about human stick throwers and rock hurlers. They found it hilarious that humans had once thought kinetic weapons were effective against energy shields. "Did you hear about the Human Museum on Kepler 442? One young Centauri said. "They have their old weapons on display. Actual metal bullets. Can you imagine being so primitive?" His friends erupted in laughter. "No wonder they lost every war before we gave them proper technology," Another added. Maria's face reddened, but Jake put a hand on her shoulder. "Let it go," he said quietly. "We have more important things to worry about." They boarded their transport ship, heading for the outer colonies. Jake's real job was not listed on any official records. While the galaxy thought humans had accepted their new peaceful role, a small group of people were very busy with something else. Dr. James Harrison was waiting for them at the Kepler 442 research station. The thin scientist looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. His hand shook slightly as he led them through the facility. "Thank God you're here," he said. "I've made another discovery. This makes 17 sites now." Jake followed him into a secure laboratory. The walls were covered with photographs of ancient ruins found on human colonies. Strange symbols covered dark stone structures. Each site looked the same, circular buildings with thick walls and deep basements. "Show them the new one," Maria said. She had been here before. Dr. Harrison activated a holographic display. It showed a massive underground complex discovered on New Terra, humanity's second largest colony. The construction team was digging a new subway system when they broke through into this. The hologram revealed corridors carved from solid rock. The walls were covered in the same symbols found at other sites. But this complex was much larger than the others. "How old?" Jake asked. "At least 2 million years," Dr. Harrison replied. "Maybe older. But here's the strange part. Look at these markings." He zoomed in on a section of wall. The symbols seemed to tell a story in pictures. This shows something coming from space, something that consumed light. Jake studied the images. They showed large, dark shapes attacking what looked like planets. The defending forces used simple weapons, spears, arrows, and primitive guns. "Every site tells the same story," Dr. Harrison continued. "An advanced civilization lived here millions of years ago. They had energy weapons, force fields, flying cities. But when these dark things came, all their advanced technology failed. What happened to them?" Maria asked. "They died," Dr. Harrison said simply. "All of them. The only survivors were the primitive humans, our ancestors, who lived in caves and fought with rocks and sticks." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You think these dark things are coming back?" "I don't think it," Dr. Harrison said grimly. "I know it. Look at this." He showed them a new image. The ancient symbols formed a clear pattern, a countdown or calendar. According to these markings, they return every 2.5 million years. The last time was exactly 2.5 million years ago. Maria stared at the display. "So they're due back now." "Any day," Dr. Harrison confirmed. "And this time, the galaxy is completely unprepared. Every species relies on energy weapons and force fields. The same technology that failed before." Jake thought about the Xanthari soldiers laughing at human weapons. "Does the Council know about this?" Dr. Harrison snorted. "I've sent them 17 reports. They file them under human historical research and ignore them. Ambassador Chun tried to get their attention, but they think we're making it up to justify building weapons again. So, what do we do?" Maria asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled grimly. "We prepare. Just like our ancestors did." Over the next few months, strange things began happening throughout human space. Mining operations dug deeper than ever before. Archaeological digs expanded into massive excavation projects. Research stations sprang up in remote locations. Other species barely noticed. The galaxy was experiencing an economic boom. Trade flowed freely under the protection of Council technology. Wars had become almost impossible with the new peaceful intent. Systems. The few alien observers who paid attention to human activities saw exactly what they expected: a defeated species. throwing themselves into harmless academic pursuits. Humans studied old rocks and ancient history. They dug holes in the ground and built research facilities. How pathetic. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves stood in what looked like an archaeological dig on the moon of Titan. Around her, teams of researchers carefully excavated ancient ruins. Massive cranes lifted stone blocks from deep pits. How many more sites? She asked her assistant. 47 active excavations across human space, came the reply. The council thinks we're obsessed with our heritage. Dr. Reeves smiled. The council had no idea what they were really building under the cover of archaeological research. Hidden beneath ancient stone foundations, humanity was constructing something the galaxy had never seen. Any word from the deep space monitors? She asked. Nothing yet, her assistant replied. But the early warning systems are all online now. The early warning systems were hidden in plain sight. Research stations that studied ancient communication methods were actually long-range scanners. Archaeological sites studying prehistoric defensive structures were really weapons platforms. Humanity had learned from their ancestors. The ancient humans had survived by being clever, not by being powerful. They had hidden their preparations and struck when the enemy least expected it. Now, their descendants were doing the same thing. In the Xanthari capital, Admiral Kreshta reviewed the latest intelligence reports on human activities. His aide pointed to images of excavation sites. Should we be concerned about all this digging? The aide asked. Admiral Kreshta laughed. Let them dig. Let them study their primitive past. It keeps them busy and reminds them of their place in the galaxy. He had no way of knowing that beneath every harmless archaeological site, humans were installing the tools they would need to save everyone. The countdown was almost over. Soon, the darkness would return from the spaces between stars. And this time, humanity would be ready. But first, the rest of the galaxy would have to learn a hard lesson about the difference between looking primitive and actually being helpless. The Deep Space Monitoring Station at Kepler 442 had been silent for 6 hours. This was not normal. The station sent status reports every 2 hours without fail. It was run by the efficient Macaron species, who never missed a deadline. Commander Veltar of the Xanthari Patrol Fleet received the emergency call while his ship was docking in Harmony Prime. The council wanted him to investigate immediately. Probably just equipment failure, his navigation officer suggested. These human colony systems are still primitive. Commander Veltar was not so sure. He had fought humans in the Proximal War. They might use simple technology, but they maintained it well. Their equipment did not fail without reason. His ship, the Glorious Dawn, was one of the most advanced vessels in the galaxy. Energy shields that could stop planet cracker missiles. Plasma cannons that could cut through asteroid belts. Sensors that could detect a coin-sized object from 1,000,000 kilometers away. The journey to Diandco, Kepler 442, took 18 hours at maximum warp. When they arrived, Commander Veltar immediately knew something was terribly wrong. The monitoring station was still there, floating in space exactly where it should be. All the lights were on. The structure looked completely undamaged. But it was not sending any signals at all. Scan for life signs, Commander Veltar ordered. Scanning now, his sensor officer replied. After a moment, confusion filled his voice. Sir, this is strange. I'm reading life signs, but they're very faint. Almost like the entire crew is in deep sleep. Hail the station. No response, sir. All communication systems appear to be functional, but no one is answering. Commander Veltar studied the readings. Everything looked normal except for the crew. Prepare a boarding shuttle. I want a full security team. 20 minutes later, Commander Veltar led 6 armed soldiers through the station's airlocks. The corridors were fully lit. Life support was working perfectly. But the entire facility was eerily quiet. They found the crew in the main control room. All 43 Macarens were at their posts, but they were completely motionless. Their eyes were open but staring at nothing. They were breathing, but barely. Medical emergency. Commander Veltar called back to his ship. Send the medical team immediately. Dr. Shan Wei, the ship's chief medical officer, arrived within minutes. She scanned the affected crew members with every instrument available. Her findings made no sense. They're alive, she reported. But it's like something drained almost all their energy. Their bodies are functioning at minimum levels to keep them alive. What could cause this? Commander Veltar asked. I have no idea, Dr. Shanwei admitted. It's like something sucked the power right out of them. Commander Veltar checked the station's power readings. Everything was normal. The reactors were functioning perfectly. All systems showed green status lights, but when he looked closer at the energy consumption logs, he found something disturbing. 6 hours ago, the station had experienced a massive power surge. For exactly 3 minutes, every system had drawn maximum power. Then everything returned to normal. Get me a full system diagnostic, he ordered. The results were even more confusing. All equipment was functioning normally, but the station's main computer had a 3-minute gap in its memory logs. Whatever had happened during the power surge, the computer could not remember it. Commander Veltar sent an urgent report back to the Council. Within hours, similar incidents were reported across 3 different sectors. Deep space stations going silent, crews found in the same drained state. Mysterious power surges with no explanation on the human colony of New Terra. Dr. James Harrison was working late in his laboratory when every alarm in the facility began screaming at once. Ancient ruins across the planet were activating for the first time in millions of years. The stone structures that humans had been excavating were suddenly alive with energy. Strange resonance patterns pulsed from deep underground chambers. Dr. Harrison ran to his monitoring equipment. The readings were off the charts. Every archaeological site was transmitting the same signal, a complex pattern that seemed to be some kind of warning. He called Dr. Elizabeth Reeves on Titan. Are you seeing this? Every site is active, she confirmed. The ancient warning system is working exactly like the inscription said it would. They're coming, James. Dr. Harrison pulled up star charts on his main display. The resonance patterns were pointing toward a specific region of space, the same dark area, between galaxies where human deep space probes had recently detected strange movement. How long do we have? Dr. Reeves asked. Dr. Harrison studied the ancient calculations carved into stone millions of years ago. If the patterns are correct, maybe days, maybe hours. Across human space, secret communication networks activated. Messages passed between mining operations, archaeological digs, and research stations. Humanity's hidden preparations moved into their final phase, but the rest of the galaxy was still trying to understand what was happening to their deep space stations. Admiral Kreshta convened an emergency council session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the mysterious attacks. 7 stations affected so far, he reported. All in Outer Rim territories. All crews found in the same drained state. Could this be some new form of terrorism? Suggested Counselor Vithara. No species has technology that could cause these effects, High Commander Zoltith replied. Our sensors detect no weapons fire, no explosions, no chemical agents. Ambassador Sarah Chun sat quietly in the human section, listening to the debate. She had received Dr. Harrison's urgent reports, but she knew the council would not believe her warnings. They had dismissed human concerns too many times before. Perhaps we should increase patrols in the affected areas, Admiral Kreshta suggested. Agreed, said the Council President. Deploy additional ships with our most advanced sensor equipment. Sarah finally stood up. Council President, I request permission to speak. The human delegate recognizes, came the formal reply. Sarah walked to the speaking podium. Council members, I believe these incidents are connected to the ancient ruins found on human worlds. My scientists have been studying them for 3 years. More human archaeological theories, Admiral Kreshta said dismissively. This is hardly the time for academic speculation. The ruins contain warnings about entities that feed on energy, Sarah continued. Beings that attack every few million years. The ancient inscriptions describe exactly what is happening to your stations. Preposterous, High Commander Zolteth declared. You expect us to believe in mythical monsters from prehistoric cave paintings? The evidence is right in front of you, Sarah said firmly. Something is draining energy from your most advanced technology. Something your sensors cannot detect properly. This is exactly what the ancient warnings predicted. Councilor Vithara's tentacles writhed in agitation. Even if we believed your fantasies, what would you suggest we do? Prepare for a fight unlike anything you have ever experienced, Sarah replied. These entities absorb energy attacks. They grow stronger when you shoot them with plasma weapons or try to stop them with force fields. Then how do we fight them? Admiral Kreshta asked mockingly. Sarah's expression was grim. With the weapons you made us destroy. With the primitive technology you banned. With rocks and sticks and metal bullets, if necessary. The chamber erupted in derisive laughter. The idea that primitive kinetic weapons could succeed where advanced energy technology failed was absurd. But Admiral Kreshta. Laughter died when his communication officer rushed into the chamber with an urgent message. Sir, the officer said breathlessly, long-range sensors have detected massive objects emerging from dark space. They're heading directly for the inner systems. The chamber fell silent. On the main display, grainy images appeared from the most distant sensor platforms. Dark shapes were moving between the stars. They were huge, each one the size of a moon. And there were dozens of them. Sarah Chun looked around the stunned chamber. Now you will learn what your ancestors knew, she said quietly. Sometimes the old ways are the only ways that work. The darkness had returned, and the galaxy was about to discover that energy weapons and force fields were useless against an enemy that fed on energy itself. The first battle took place in the Altair system, where the Zentari Third Fleet was conducting training exercises. Admiral Kreshta commanded 12 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a planet. When the Devourer ships appeared at the edge of the system, Admiral Kreshta felt confident. These dark entities might be mysterious, but no force in the galaxy could stand against Zentari plasma weaponry. All ships, battle formation, he commanded. Target the largest vessel and fire at will. The fleet opened fire with everything they had. Brilliant blue plasma beams lanced across space, each one carrying enough energy to power a city for a year. The beams struck the lead Devourer ship directly and disappeared. The massive dark vessel absorbed every blast like a sponge soaking up water. Instead of being damaged, it seemed to grow brighter. Veins of energy ran along its organic hull, pulsing with stolen power. Impossible, Admiral Kreshta whispered. Increase power to maximum. All ships focus fire. The Zentari fleet unleashed a barrage that should have vaporized an asteroid belt. The Devourer ships absorbed it all. Worse, they began moving faster, as if the energy attacks were feeding them. Then, Devourers struck back. Tendrils of darkness reached out from the alien vessels. They passed right through the Zentari energy shields, as if they did not exist. When the tendrils touched the warships, Every system began to fail. Admiral Kreshta watched in horror as his flagship's power readings dropped rapidly. Lights dimmed throughout the ship. Life support began shutting down. Weapons went offline. "Sir, we're losing power," his engineering officer reported. "Something is draining our reactors." All around the system, the same thing was happening to every ship in the fleet. The mighty Xanthari warships became floating hulks, drifting helplessly as their crews fell into the same drained state found at the monitoring stations. Admiral Kreshta managed to send one final message before his ship went dark. "All forces, stay away. Energy weapons. Make them stronger." The news spread across the galaxy in hours. The Xanthari Third Fleet, 12 ships that had never known defeat, destroyed without firing a single effective shot. Panic spread through the council. Emergency meetings were called. Every major fleet was put on high alert. High Commander Zalteth of the Silicon Hegemony took personal command of the response. He assembled the largest battle fleet in galactic history, over 300 ships from 20 different species. The Xanthari failed because they relied on brute force, he announced to his commanders. "We will use precision strikes and advanced tactics." The fleet engaged the Devourers near the Vega system. Zaltith coordinated a complex attack pattern using the most sophisticated weapons available. Ion cannons that could disrupt molecular bonds. Antimatter torpedoes that annihilated everything they touched. Quantum disruptors that operated at the subatomic level. Every single weapon failed. The Devourers absorbed the ion bursts and grew larger. The antimatter torpedoes vanished into their dark hulls without a trace. The quantum disruptors only seemed to make them more solid. Within 6 hours, 300 ships from 20 species had joined the Xanthari fleet as powerless hulks drifting in space. The galaxy's greatest. Military commanders were reduced to sending desperate messages. Conventional weapons ineffective. Entities feed on all energy. Require immediate assistance. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood before an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The great chamber that had once mocked human weapons was now filled with terrified species begging for help. "We need your weapons," Admiral Kreshta said via emergency communication from his disabled flagship. "You must have kept some of your kinetic weapons hidden." Sarah shook her head grimly. "We followed your treaty to the letter. Our weapons facilities were dismantled. Our military infrastructure was converted to peaceful purposes. Then build new ones," Councillor Vithara demanded. "Surely you can reconstruct them quickly." "Our shipyards were converted to build civilian vessels," Sarah replied. "Our weapons factories now make farming equipment. Our military academies teach peaceful negotiation. How long would it take to rebuild?" High Commander Zaltith asked desperately. Admiral Elena Vasquez, former commander of the Human Defense Corps, stepped forward. The old soldier had been forced into retirement when the treaty passed. 8 months minimum for basic kinetic weapons, she said bluntly. 2 years for anything effective against fleet-sized targets. That is assuming we can get access to the necessary materials and manufacturing equipment. The chamber fell into stunned silence. 8 months was far too long. The Devourers were moving toward the core systems. They would reach major population centers within weeks. "There must be something you can do," Admiral Kreshta pleaded. "Some human trick or strategy." Sarah and Admiral Vasquez exchanged glances. Sarah nodded slightly. "There might be," Admiral Vasquez said carefully, "but it would require access to our archaeological sites and research facilities." "Anything," High Commander Zaltith said immediately. "You have unlimited access to all human territories." Admiral Vasquez smiled for the first time in 3 years. "Then we need to visit every excavation site in human space. Immediately." What the Council did not know was that humanity had never really disarmed. They had simply become very creative with their definitions. Archaeological excavations had uncovered historical weapons that happened to be fully functional. Mining operations had discovered ancient defensive structures that were actually hidden weapons platforms. Research facilities had been studying primitive kinetic theories, while building railguns and mass drivers. Dr. James Harrison met Admiral Vasquez at the new Terra dig site. What looked like ancient stone foundations from the surface was actually a sophisticated underground complex. "How much did you actually build?" Admiral Vasquez asked. "Every excavation site has a weapons platform," Dr. Harrison replied. "Every research station has hidden armaments. Every mining operation has kinetic bombardment capability." They descended into the underground facility. Hidden beneath millions of years of rock and dirt was a massive railgun complex. The weapon could accelerate tungsten rods to incredible speeds and send them across the solar system. "We learned from our ancestors," Dr. Harrison explained. "They survived by being clever, not powerful. They hid their weapons and struck when the enemy was not expecting it." Admiral Vasquez examined the weapon systems. They were crude compared to galactic standards, but they were exactly what humanity needed. Simple kinetic weapons that would not feed the Devourers. Electromagnetic pulse systems that could disrupt the entity's energy-based physiology. "How many sites like this?" she asked. 47 major installations," Dr. Harrison replied, "plus hundreds of smaller weapons hidden in civilian infrastructure." Admiral Vasquez began to understand the scope of humanity's preparations. "You turned your entire civilization into a hidden weapons network." "We tried to warn them," Dr. Harrison said quietly. "When they would not listen, we prepared anyway." Across human space, the truth was being revealed. Cargo haulers were opening hidden compartments to reveal missile launchers. Mining ships were extending concealed railguns. Research stations were activating military-grade sensor arrays. Humanity had spent 3 years disguising their entire military capability as civilian archaeology and research. They had never truly disarmed. They had simply become invisible. "Admiral," Vasquez opened the communication channel to Admiral Cresta. "Admiral, this is Elena Vasquez. We have weapons available for immediate deployment." "Thank the gods," Admiral Cresta replied. "What do you need from us?" "Nothing," Admiral Vasquez said simply. "We just need you to stay out of our way." The Devourers were about to discover that humanity's ancestors had left them more than just warnings carved in stone. They had left them the knowledge of how to fight an enemy that could not be defeated with energy weapons. And their descendants had been preparing for this moment for 3 long years. The Devourer fleet approached Earth like a dark tide sweeping across space. 43 massive ships, each one gorged with energy stolen from the galaxy's finest warships. They had grown larger and more powerful with every victory. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the command center buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Around her, displays showed the approaching enemy and the positions of human forces throughout the solar system. "All platforms report." "Ready," her communications officer announced. "Confirm targets on 12 Devourer ships." Her sensor operator added. Admiral Vasquez studied the tactical display. The enemy was moving in a loose formation, confident after their string of easy victories. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Commence Operation Ancestors' Revenge," she ordered. "All units, execute on my mark." The first surprise came from the asteroid belt. What the galaxy thought were simple mining operations revealed their true purpose. Massive railguns emerged from hollowed-out asteroids, each one capable of accelerating tungsten rods to 10% of light speed. "Mark," Admiral Vasquez said quietly. Kinetic kill vehicles launched from 20 hidden positions. Simple metal rods, each one weighing 10 tons, screamed across space at incredible velocity. No energy signatures to absorb. No exotic particles to feed on. Just pure kinetic energy and mass. The tungsten rods punched through the lid Devourer ship like bullets through paper. The massive entity convulsed as physical matter tore through its organic structure. Dark fluid sprayed into space as the creature writhed in what looked like pain. For the first time since emerging from dark space, a Devourer had been hurt. The alien fleet reacted immediately, sending out energy tendrils to drain power from the attacking platforms. But the kinetic weapons had no energy systems to drain. They were simple magnetic accelerators, powered by closed-loop fusion reactors that could not be reached by the alien draining effect. Second wave. Launch. Admiral Vasquez commanded. More kinetic projectiles erupted from hidden positions throughout the solar system. The moon revealed concealed railgun batteries. Mars opened weapon silos disguised as geological survey stations. Even Earth's research satellites extended, missile pods that had been camouflaged as communication equipment. The Devourers tried to adapt, moving in evasive patterns to avoid the incoming projectiles. But Admiral Vasquez had anticipated this. The third wave was already launching from Earth itself. Dr. James Harrison activated the network of IMEP generators hidden beneath every archaeological site on the planet. The ancient warning systems that had detected this Devourer's approach now became weapons designed to disrupt their energy-based physiology. Massive electromagnetic pulses erupted from 47 positions across Earth's surface. The pulses were timed to intersect precisely where the Devourer fleet would be in 30 seconds. The effect was devastating. When the electromagnetic waves struck them, the Devourer ships began to lose cohesion. Their organic hulls flickered and became translucent. They were beings made of organized energy, and the amp attacks disrupted the patterns that held them together. Admiral Elena Vasquez watched the enemy fleet begin to break apart. But she was not finished. Activate the civilian network, she ordered. Across human space, the truth about humanity's demilitarization became clear. Every cargo ship in the commercial fleet opened hidden weapon bays. Every passenger liner deployed concealed missile systems. Every space station revealed military-grade armaments. Humanity had not just hidden weapons in their archaeological sites. They had turned their entire civilization into a disguised military force. The Kepler 442 colony ship, supposedly carrying peaceful settlers, fired a spread of kinetic torpedoes that had been disguised as supply containers. The New Angeles commercial hub deployed a particle accelerator that had been camouflaged as a mass transit system. Even individual human ships joined the fight. Private vessels that looked like simple transport craft revealed they had been built with hidden weapon systems. 3 years of supposedly peaceful shipbuilding had actually produced the largest stealth fleet in galactic history. Admiral Kreshta watched the battle from his disabled flagship and could hardly believe what he was seeing. The humans were fighting with weapons that looked primitive compared to galactic standards. But they were winning. How? He whispered to Ambassador Sarah Chan, who joined him to observe the battle. You never understood what our weapons were really for, Sarah replied. You thought we built them to fight other species, but we developed them to fight this. She pointed to the ancient data files Dr. Harrison had compiled. Our ancestors faced these entities before. They learned that energy weapons only make them stronger. Only physical force and electromagnetic disruption can hurt them. But your technology is so primitive, Admiral Kreshta protested. Primitive? Sarah laughed. Admiral, we accelerated those tungsten rods to 30,000 kilometers per second. We generated electromagnetic pulses powerful enough to disrupt quantum-level energy patterns. We coordinated attacks across light years of space with split-second timing. Admiral Kreshta studied the tactical displays more carefully. The human attack had been incredibly sophisticated. Hundreds of platforms firing in perfect synchronization. Kinetic strikes calculated to hit moving targets across impossible distances. EMP bursts timed to arrive at precisely the right moment. This was not primitive, he realized. This was the most advanced military operation I have ever seen. The Devourer fleet was retreating now, falling back toward dark space. Half their ships had been destroyed or damaged beyond function. The survivors were fleeing from weapons they had never encountered before, but Admiral Vasquez was not letting them. "Escape. Launch pursuit torpedoes," she commanded. Final surprise was the most devastating of all. What the galaxy had thought were deep space research probes turned out to be long-range kinetic weapons. For 3 years, humanity had been positioning these scientific instruments throughout the outer system. The fleeing Devourer ships ran directly into a wall of kinetic fire. Tungsten rods launched from weapons platforms disguised as astronomical observatories. The retreating entities were systematically hunted down and destroyed. Within 6 hours, the threat that had terrorized the galaxy was eliminated. The last Devourer ship disappeared into dark space, too damaged to return for millions of years. The aftermath was almost as shocking as the battle itself. As rescue ships reached the disabled alien fleets, the scale of humanity's deception became clear. Every human archaeological dig had been a weapons platform. Every research station had been a military facility. Every mining operation had been constructing defensive systems. Humanity had never disarmed. They had simply become invisible. Ambassador Sarah Chun addressed the emergency session of the Galactic Council from Earth's orbital platform. The chamber was filled with species that had spent 3 years mocking human primitiveness. The Human Weapons Restriction Act is hereby nullified, Council President Talveth announced. All restrictions on human military development are permanently lifted. That will not be necessary, Sarah replied calmly. We never stopped developing our military capabilities. We simply learned to be more careful about how we presented them. Admiral Kreshta, rescued from his disabled ship, spoke from his hospital bed. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you banned our weapons, Sarah replied. You taught us that the galaxy prefers comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. So we gave you the comfortable lie that we had disarmed, while preparing for the uncomfortable truth that we might need to fight alone. High Commander Zoltith struggled to understand what had happened. Your weapons were so crude, so simple. How could they succeed where our advanced technology failed? Because simple tools often work better than complex ones, Sarah explained. You built weapons designed to impress. We built weapons designed to kill specific enemies. Dr. James Harrison joined the transmission from the New Terra facility. Our ancestors left us detailed instructions about fighting the Devourers. Every symbol carved in ancient stone was a tactical manual. We spent 3 years building exactly what those instructions specified. The council sat in stunned silence. They had dismissed human warnings as primitive superstition, only to discover that human primitive weapons were the most advanced tools available for this specific threat. What happens now? Councillor Vithara asked quietly. Sarah. Chun looked around the chamber at the representatives of 847 species. Now you understand why we tried to warn you. There are things in the dark spaces between galaxies that energy shields cannot stop. Threats that require tools you would consider primitive. She paused, letting her words sink in. We will continue to maintain our defensive capabilities. We will continue to study the ancient warnings. And next time we tell you something is dangerous, perhaps you will listen. Admiral Vasquez appeared on screen beside Sarah. The Devourer threat is neutralized for at least 2 million years. But there are other things out there in the dark. Other enemies that require different tools. Will you share your defensive technology with us? Admiral Kreshta asked. Of course, Sarah replied. But you must understand, this technology requires a different mindset. You must be willing to look primitive to appear harmless.